Welcome back to another episode of Orinda Talks. I'm your host Orinda, and today I will talk about Avatar, written and directed by James Cameron. When his brother is killed in a robbery, paraplegic Marine Jake Sully decides to take his place in a mission on the distant world of Pandora. There he learns of greedy corporate figureheads Parker Selfridge's intentions of driving off the native humanoid Na'vis in order to mine for the precious materials scattered throughout their rich woodland. In exchange for the spinal surgery that will fix his legs, Jake's gathers knowledge of the indigenous race and their culture for the corporation military unit spearheaded by gung-ho Colonel Courage, while stimulously attempting to infiltrate the Na'vi people with the use of an avatar identity. While Jake begins to bond with the Na'vi tribe and quickly falls in love with the beautiful alien Neytiri, the restless colonel moves forward with his ruthless extermination tactics, forcing the soldier to take a stand and fight back in an epic battle for the fate of Pandora. In 2154, humans have depleted Earth's natural resources, leading to a severe energy crisis. The Research Development Administration, RDA, mines a valuable mineral called onobotanicum on Pandora, a decently forested habitat moon orbiting Polyphemus, a fictional gas giant in the Alpha Centauri star system. Pandora, whose atmosphere is poisonous to humans, is inhabited by the Na'vi, a species of 10-foot tall, blue-skinned sapiens that live in harmony with nature and worship a mother goddess named Ewa. To explore Pandora's biosphere, scientists use Na'vi-human hybrid called avatars, operated by genetically matched humans. Jake Sully, a paraplegic former Marine, replaced his decades identical twin brother as an operator of one. Dr. Grace Augustine, head of the Avatar program, considers Sully an inadequate replacement but accepts his assignment as a bodyguard. While escorting the avatars of Grace and fellow scientist Dr. Norm Spellman, Jake's avatar is attacked by Tantor, a flees into the forest, where he is rescued by Neytiri, a female Na'vi. Witnessing an auspicious sign, she takes him to her clan. Neytiri's mother, Moed, the clan's spiritual leader, orders her daughter to initiate Jake into their society. Colonel Miles Crittich, head of RDA Private Security Force, promised Jake that the company will restore his legs if he gathers information about the Na'vis and the clan's gathering place, a giant tree called Home Tree, which stands above the richest deposit of unobotanium in the area. When Grace learns of this, she transfers herself, Jake and Norm, to an outpost. Over the following 3 months, Jake and Neytiri fall in love as Jake grows to sympathize with the Na'vis. After Jake is initiated into the tribe, he and Neytiri choose each other as mates. Soon afterwards, Jake reveals his change of allegiance when he attempts to disable a bulldozer that threatens to destroy a secret Na'vi site. When Courage shows a video recording of Jake attacking the bulldozer to Administrator Parker Selfridge, and another in which Jake admits that the Na'vis will never abandon Home Tree, Selfridge home tree destroyed. Despite Gray's argument that destroying home tree could damage the biological neural network native to Pandora, Selfridge gave Jake and Grace 1 hour to convince the Navis to evacuate before commencing the attack. Jake confesses to the Navis that he was a spy, and they take him and Grace captive. Courage men destroy Home Tree, killing Natiri's father, the Genclave, and many others. Mowat frees Jake and Grace, but they are detached from their avatar and imprisoned by Courage forces. Pilot Trudy Channon, disgusted by Courage's brutality, frees Jake, Grace, and Norm, and airlifts them to Grace's outpost. But Grace is shot by Courage during the escape. To regain the Navi's trust, Jake connects his mind to that of Torak, a dragon-like predator, feared and honored by the Navis. Jake finds the refugees at the sacred Tree of Souls and pleads with Moa to heal Grace. The clan attempts to transfer Grace from her human body into her avatar with the aid of the Tree of Souls, but she dies before the process can be completed. Supposed by the new chief Chute, Jake unites the clan and tells them to gather all of the clans to battle the RDA. Courage organized a preemptive strike against the Tree of Souls, believing that its destructive will demoralize the natives. On the eve of the battle, Jake prays to Ewa via a neural connection with the Tree of Souls to intercede on behalf of the Navis. During the subsequent battle, the Navis suffer heavily casualties, including Chutes and Trudy, but are rescued when Pandora's wildlife unexpectedly joined the attack and overwhelmed the humans with Natiri's interprets and Eowa's answers to Jake's prayer. Jake destroys a makeshift bomber before it can reach the Tree of Souls. Courage, wearing an EMP suit, escaped from his own damaged aircraft, then later find and break open the Avatar Link unit containing Jake's human body, exposing it to Pandora's poisoning atmosphere. Courage prepares to slit the throat of Jake's avatar, but Natiri's kills Courage and saves Jake for suffocation, seeing his human form for the first time. Avatar is one of my favorite movies ever. I love the storyline and everything in it. So, way to go, Mr. Cameron. The Navis always remind me of the Native Americans, and I love the fact how close they are with Mother Earth. That's something I can relate to. I also love how the characters being written, but also how close they are with some of the people here on Earth. So, this is not only a beautiful story, but it's also today is a learning experience for everyone on the world. And if we, humankind, are that stupid to think we can conquer Mother Earth, well, guess again, we're not. And like the Parker Selfridge, people only want money and want the materials of Mother Earth, of take a sample of people want to get rich, get most of the money, want to have gold, silver, diamonds, etc. But they don't know what Mother Earth is really giving them. So, and it's gonna be true, I believe, because we have out searched and reached or researchers on Earth. We are looking for a new planet to live on and to reserve the materials on there. So my view of all about this is, why do you want to go to another planet to live there if you have a beautiful planet where you live on now? Why are we still raping Mother Earth? It's ridiculous. We people, we need to think about how we have to live with Mother Earth. And I can tell you this, I have experienced this myself. If you are good to Mother Earth, she will be good to you and provide. So let's take a look on some of the characters. Jake Sully. Jake Sully was born in August 24th, 2126 on Earth and spent his childhood hearing stories about Pandora, a fictional inhabited Earth-like moon in Alpha Centauri. Approaching adulthood, Jake becomes a Marine, and during a service in Venezuela he suffered a severe spinal injury, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. One night during a bar brawl, Jake was thrown out on the street and met the RDA agents, which told him that his twin brother, PhD Tom Sully, who previously trained as an Avatar operator, was murdered. They offered him an opportunity to replace him because of their genetical identity, which Jake accepted and was sent for a trip to Pandora aboard the ISV Ventura Star. When he arrives on Pandora, Dr. Grace Augustine, head of the Avatar program, considers Sully an inadequate replacement but accepts his assignment as a bodyguard. While escorting the avatars of Grace and fellow scientist Dr. Norman Spellman, Jake's avatar is attacked by Tanator and flees into the forest, where he is rescued by Neytiri, a female Na'vi. Witnessing an auspicious sign, she takes him to her clan. Neytiri's mother, Moet, the clan's spiritual leader, ordered her daughter to initiate Jake into their society and their ways. Colonel Miles Courage, head of RDA's private security force, takes advantage of Jake's new position by promising Jake that in exchange for information about the Na'vis, the company will pay for an operation that would give Jake the ability to walk again. When Grace learns of this, she transfers herself, Jake and Norm to an outpost. Over the following 3 months, Jake and Neytiri fall in love, and Jake grows to sympathize with the natives. Jake reveals his change of allegiance when he attempts to disable a bulldozer that threatens to destroy a secret Na'vi site. When Courage shows a video recording of Jake's attack on the bulldozers to Administrator Parker Selfridge, and another in which Jake admits that the Na'vis will never abandon Home Tree, Selfridge orders Home Tree destroyed. Jake then convinced Selfridge to give him 1 hour to convince the Na'vis evacuate before commencing the attack. Jake confessed to the Na'vis that he was a spy and take him and Grace captive. Courage men destroy Home Tree. In the midst of this chaos, Moet free Jake and Grace, but they are detached from their avatars and imprisoned by Courage's force. Pilot Trudy Chagon, disgusted by Courage's brutality, frees Jake, Grace and Norm and airlifts their to Grace's post, but Grace is shot by Garrett during the escape. To regain the Navi's trust, Jake connects his mind to that of Torok, a dragon-line predator feared and honored by the Navis. Jake finds the refugees at the sacred Tree of Souls and pleads with Moa to heal Grace. The clan attempts to transfer Grace from her human body into her avatar with the aid of the Tree of Souls, but as she dies before the process can be completed. Supported by the new chief Chute, Jake united the clan and tells them to gather all of the clans to battle the RDA. During this subsequent battle, the Navis suffer heavy casualties, but are rescued when Pandoran wildlife unexpectedly joined the attack and overwhelmed the humans, which Neytiri interprets as Awas were answer to Jake's prayer. Jake destroys a makeshift bomber before it can reach the Tree of Souls. Courage, wearing an EMP suit, escapes from his own damaged aircraft, then later finds and breaks open the Avatar Link unit containing Jake's human body, exposing it to poisonous atmosphere. Kravitz prepared to slit the throat of Jake's avatar, but Neytiri kills Kravitz and saves Jake from suffocation, seeing his human form for the first time. This was also a moment that she said, "I see you." And Jake answered also, "I see you." So, take this in mind and try to understand what "I see you" truly means. With the exceptions of Jake, Norm, and a select few others, all the humans are expelled from Pandora and sent back to Earth. Jake is permanently transformed into his avatar with the aid of the Tree of Souls. I like the character of Jake Sully. And like I said before, he is a example what we people of today are, and I do think, and that's the most beautiful thing in the movie and story of Pocahontas, and what native people always said, of course other people as well. If you only step into the shoes of somebody else, maybe you can try and understand how somebody is or why somebody is reacting like that. Of course, this can be positive, but it also can be negative. The nice thing of Jake is that he expanded his horizon. And they say it's sympathizing with the Navis, but I do think they learned him so much more lessons and they give him so much more knowledge that I think a person that had the opportunity to experience this is one of the luckiest person in the world. And you see, the Navis are really like the Native Americans, because Native Americans will be very careful on who they let into their clan or in their tribe. So this is not only just a movie or a great story, it's also what it's still for today, up to date for today. Neytiri. Neytiri was born as Neytiri Te Chicana Moradred, daughter of Moad and Itukan. She grew up learning through songs, as all Na'vis do, learning to love and celebrate the connection with Ewa and all other life. She later learns to speak English from Grace Augustine School, but it was closed down after an attack in 2152. During the confrontation, Neteria saw her sister Selwyn killed right in front of her, gunned down in the doorway. While Grace saved many of the other students, relations between the human and the Na'vis grew tenser than ever. Sometimes before the events of the film, Neteria was betrothed to Chute, and they were expected to succeed Itukan and Moad as the clan leader and spiritual leader of the Omaticaya clan. One day while Neteria is hunting in the woods, she spots Jake Sully's avatar and begins to stalk him. As she is about to kill the armed intruder with a bow, a wood spirit floats down and gently touches her arrowhead, telling her that the avatar is pure. She continues to follow the avatar because of this symbol. When the avatar is attacked by a pack of viper wolves, she protects him by fending off the creatures. Although Jake tries to thank her for saving her, she rejects him and she wants nothing to do with the human. Suddenly, dozens of wood spirits land on Jake. Amazed by what she was witnessed, Neteri sees this as a good omen from Iowa and decides to take him to Home Tree, the home of the Omaticaya clan. Upon arriving, Chute attacks Jake and attempts to kill him, but Neteri stops him, explaining the signs she had received from Iowa. Jake is then taken to meet with Itukan and Moad, and they decide that they must study Jake, as he is the first avatar who was a soldier and not a scientist. With her first children, Neteria is tasked with teaching Jake the Na'vi's way. Over the following 3 months, Neteria teaches Jake the ways of the Na'vis. She shows him how to move through the Pandoran jungle, makes Cheheyu a bond that allows him to ride dire horses, and Ikran speaks the Na'vi language and hunting rituals. She also tells him Na'vi stories, including the story of Taruk Makto, a mystical Na'vi warrior who was closely linked with Iowa and therefore able to make Chehelu with the Turok, a legendary Pandoran creature. During this time, she also falls in love with Jake, and eventually they mate. After Jake reveals his true mission and explains that the RDA was coming to destroy Home Tree, the Tur furiously reject him and allows Chute to bind and kill him. However, before the execution can happen, the RDE strikes, destroying Home Tree, and taking several Na'vi's casualties, including Itukan. Jake finds her and attempts to comfort her, but once again she rejects him and demands that he go away and never come back. Neteri and the other surviving members of the Omaticaya clan then seek refuge at the Tree of Souls, where they pray that Iowa will save them. Their prayers are answered when Jace returns, having made Sehelu with the Tarok. Recognizing his close connection to Iowa, Neteri forgives him and accepts him again. She then helps Jake rally the other Na'vi clans to prepare for an impending attack from the RDA, who plans to strike and destroy the Tree of Souls. During the subsequent battle, the Na'vi suffer heavy casualties, but are rescued when Pandoran wildlife unexpectedly join the attack and overwhelm the humans, which Netherese interprets as Eowa's answers to Jake's prayer. Jake destroys a massive bomber before it can reach the Tree of Souls. Courage, wearing a AMP suit, escapes from his own damaged aircraft, then later finds and breaks open the Avatar Link unit containing Jake's human body, exposing it to Pandora's poisonous atmosphere. Courage prepares to slit the throat of Jake's avatar, but Netherese kills Courage and saves Jake from suffocation, seeing his human form for the first time. With the exception of Jake, Norman and a select few others, all humans are expelled from Pandora and sent back to the Earth. Netherese watches over Jake as he is permanently transferred into his avatar with the aid of the Tree of Souls. Nefertari embodies for me a strong woman who fights but also has the softness of a woman that still has to lead in a womanly manner. We see this in women that are meant to be doing great things, and also as a leader. Nefertari is one of the characters that's also reminds me of a lot of female shamans over all of the world. And because she will be the next shaman of her clan or tribe, she has a certain way of living and also a certain way of thinking. And I think that is the biggest gift she's giving Jake, to forgive him and take him back. Because I can imagine that she is very hurt by what he actually was in the beginning. But it's also great that she sees the good in him, and that he is going to lead the attack against the RDA. Dr. Grace Augustine. Dr. Grace Augustine was an exobotanist in charge of the Avatar program. She was a legend to the scientific personnel and the author of a comprehensive book on Pandora's plants. She helped Jake Sully on the Avatar program until she died due to a gunshot wound inflicted by Colonel Courage. Arriving on Pandora several years before Jake Sully, Dr. Augustine was reluctant to accept him on her team due to his lack of training and qualifications for the program. But she had no choice. When Jake was lost in the forest, she presumed his avatar dead, but later found out that his avatar has been taken in by the Omaticaya clan. Due to Jake's presence, in successive months, relationship with the clan improved, and Grace was allowed back into the village until the home tree was destroyed. Grace, Jake, and Norm Spellman escaped Hell's Gate in an effort to help the Omaticaya, but not before Courage fatally wounded Grace while firing at the Samsung that they were escaping in. Jake brought her human form to Netherese and Mowat at the Tree of Souls in the hope that they could transfer her consciousness into her avatar form. But she was rendered too weak by the wounds, and the transfer failed. Before she died at the foot of the Tree of Souls, she told Jake that she was with Iowa. Grace arrived on Pandora in 2139, 15 years before Jake and Norm. She explored the plants of Pandora and literally wrote the book on the unique botany as that she discovered. She was considered a living legend in the Terran scientific community. Grace also created a school to teach the Na'vi English and human culture, until it was shut down after a massacre by the RDA where many children were killed, one of them being the clan leader's daughter, Silwanin. She continued to keep pictures of her students, one of them being Neteri, on a cabinet fridge door in a camp. Site 26, stationed in the Hallelujah Mountains. Several years later, in 2154, the ISV Venture Star deploys shuttles to Pandora, carrying soldiers, technicians, and new additions to the Avatar team. Among these was Norm Spellman, anthropologist, and Jake Sully's standoff for his twin brother, Tom Sully, who was killed by a mugger on Earth. Grace was sharp with the newcomers, particularly so with Jake, whom she saw an incompetent and attempt by military to hijack her program. She made it clear that she was displeased and that she considered Jake's brother Tom Sully to have had skills far more valuable than those Jake had. Bringing Jake up to speed required a tremendous amount of effort on her part and that of Dr. Max Pactel, technical support officer. Grace also made her feelings about RDA Administrator Parker Selfridge abundantly clear for the benefit of her team. She not only disagreed with Selfridge's principles and agenda, but also his impatient methods regarding negotiation or pacifications of the Na'vis. Grace and Jake's first Avatar encounter took place in the outdoor recreation area, shortly after Jake took control of his Avatar for the first time. Grace Augustines appears to be a very fond and a close of her Na'vi student who seemed to show the same feelings towards her. This was demonstrated when they dragged her unconscious afterbody to the Tree of Souls with them after the destruction of Home Tree. As a scientist, Grace's primary concern was with her work. She demonstrated her dedication to the study of Pandora and the Na'vi early and often. This is dedication often manifested in itself as hostility towards Colonel Courage and Parker Selfridge, who did not share her enthusiasm. As a result of this hostility, it was considered by many outside the Avatar program that Grace was little more than a lonely scientist and that she loved plants more than humans. Grace was a smoker and a moderate drinker. She later shows her warmer side in her concern for Jake's well-being. When in her Avatar form, Grace seems more enthusiastic about her work and more cheerful and kind instead of being irritable. I can't help seeing Dr. Grace Augustine as she played the character of an alien. And in one way, I don't want to say it's the same character she's playing, but it's more like she has a very profound relationship with alien species. But Dr. Grace, or Grace as we call her, I think she is in one way a very great person, not only to want to study the culture of the Na'vis and the plants and etc. And although I'm not fond of scientific projects, but I do think it's important that we have scientists, and she was a scientist who not only loved her work, but also was very, very connected with the Na'vis, and she was fond of them, and she was the one who doesn't want to destroy the Na'vis or Pandora. So she would be a scientist that only not she would be doing pure for the science, the knowledge, and not using that as in destroying the planet or the Na'vis. And one thing I like about her is that she, although in her human practice as a scientist, I think she's quite lonely. And only a few people who really knows her and work with her and under her mood swings knows who she really is and are fond of her. Like we could see how Navid and like Jake Sully and Norm were, I don't want fond of her, but I think more like respecting her. And, you know, I think they shown, she is like a mediation between an alien species and humankind. Norm Spellman. Norm Spellman is a human anthropologist and well as an avatar driver. It is currently unknown whether or not he has his consciousness transferred into his avatar body like Jake, his friend and ally. Norm was born and raised on Earth and trained as a scientist. Aside from this, nothing is known of his life before he joined the Avatar program. Before his first assignment on Pandora, he claimed to have studied the Na'vi language for 5 years and has logged 520 hours of simulations time in preparation for linking with his avatar. Norm, being a friend of the late Tom Sully, immediately introduced himself to Jake Sully, Tom's brother. Though they later became close friends, Norm originally was somewhat envious of Jake, who after becoming lost in the forest was abducted by the Omaticaya clan of the Na'vis. Enjoying the contact this tutelage brought with the clan, Norm put aside his jealousy and acted as Jack's tutor, along with Dr. Grace Augustine and Neytiri in the Na'vi culture. Norm watched the scene from the main link center in Hell's Gate when Parker selfish orative cutting off Jake and Grace personic links to try in vain to stop security from doing so, only to find himself imprisoned along with Jake and Grace in the station brick, where they were rescued by Trudy Cannon and Dr. Max Patel. The team flew to the Hallelujah Mountains to pick up one of the two link unit containers. In his avatar form, Norm helped tie the container to Trudy Sampson and was supervising the transport to the Tree of Souls from on top of the structure while Jake and Grace were inside. Norm, fighting with the Na'vi in the final battle of Pandora, Norm fought aside Jake and the Na'vis against the RDA. Well, Jake led the air assault. Norm rode alongside the Navi's cavalry, even killed a few RDE troopers. As the unarmored Navis were cut down by the RDA troops, his avatar was shot in the left shoulder, causing the neutral link to be severed. Back in the undermanned human body, suffering from shock but determined to help, he recovered enough to arm himself with a rifle and on an export back to rejoin the fray. When the RDA was driven from Pandora following the battle, he was one of the few humans allowed to stay. Personality and traits. As a scientist, Norm was fascinated by Pandora and its environment. He was friendly and got along with most people. He was a friend of Jake's Sully deceased twin brother Tom and also befriended Jake. However, due to Jake's ignorance of Pandora and its inhabitants, Norm sometimes threw off him as a skywink, a moron. Norm was initially envious of Jake after the latter acceptance into the Omaktakaya clan, but when he helped Jake learn the Navi's way of life, their friendship solidified and he got even over his envy. When they first arrived on Pandora, Norm possessed a considerably greater knowledge of the moon and its inhabitants than Jake. Having been through avatar training for 5 years, he was skilled at speaking the Navi language, although his issue of the language was rather formal. He was also incredulous when Jake asked who Enya was. Though Norm usually has a friendly and non-threatening personality, he did attempt unsuccessfully to violently stop a soldier who tried to serve the link to Jake's avatar following the destruction of the home tree. Later, he fought against the RDA along with Jake and the Navis, and even though his avatar was shot down, he was determined to keep fighting in his human form. He also killed at least a few soldiers during the battle. I kinda like Norm Stabelman. Although he comes over as a super duper nerd, you could respect him for his knowledge and for the gentle being he is. And I was really pleased that the Navis was let him stay on Pandora. It wouldn't be strange for me as they would transfer his consciousness to his avatar body. And I think for most of the people that will be staying there, I think that will be the case because they are in that way, yeah, how can I say this? It's just how they are. And I think Norm is a very good candidate to actually become a Navi. Dr. Max Patel. Dr. Max Patel is a civilian scientist on Pandora. He appears to be in charge of overseeing the process of synchronizing the minds of humans with the avatar bodies, as well as providing technical advice and support to the avatar team. Max is implied to have been on Pandora for a number of years by the time of Jake Sully and Norm Spellman's arrival as a member of Dr. Grace Augustine original staff. He is the inside man of RDA's defects and one of the few humans allowed to stay on Pandora after the Pandoran War. Personality and traits. Max is chosen to stay with some other humans. Max is a kind-hearted man and very loyal to his friends. Jake said that Max is one of the few humans on Pandora that he could trust and asked him to be his inside man to help Jake find out what expect from the RDA in the final battle. He is a clever scientist and was charged of overseeing the process of transferring a human mind into an avatar body. Max is quite cautious, asking Jake to settle down after being transferred into his new body. Because Jake hadn't yet adapted to his body and Max didn't want him to accidentally injure himself or anyone else. I do kind like Max Patel. He is kind. The only thing it was really is that he didn't get that much screen time. So we never actually learning who Max Patel really is. And it would be nice to learn something more about him. And I think he could be the link between also between the humans and the Navis. I do imagine him being like head of the human resources there on Pandora. Colonel Miles Courage. Colonel Miles Courage was an RDA Security Operations Commander, serving as a Chief of Security on Pandora in the early 2150s. Serving as the senior RDA commander during the Pandoran War, he directed the destruction of the Omatakayan clan home tree and led SecOps forces in the assault on the Tree of Souls, where he was killed in action. Before joining the Resource Deployment Administration Security Operations branch, Colonel Courage served as an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps. He saw combat in numerous Earth military engagements without injury, most notably 3 tours in Nigeria with Marines' 1st Reconnaissance Battalion. On the first day on Pandora, an encounter with the wildlife dealt him into a trio of trademark scars to the right side of his head and face. Given the option to return home to Earth to reconstructive surgery, he opted to stay on Pandora. With his impressive record, he was eventually chosen as the Chief of Security Operations on Pandora. Courage looked and acted like a lifelong military man. He wore his hair short and was covered with battle scars, most notably a trio of claw marks on the side of his head, which is subtained during his first day on Pandora. His long-running military career was symptomatic of his personality. He regularly worked out of the offset to low gravity on Pandora so he didn't get soft. He was in outstanding physical condition, despite being middle-aged, and was willing to put himself in significant personal risk when he fought the situation warranted it. And aspect with his AMP suit, he was familiar with combat techniques as demonstrated by his marksmanship, hand-to-hand and melee combat skills. Despite being a fierce and merciful warrior, Curtis took care of his own and had good relationship with his SecOp soldiers, who respected him as a commander and leader. However, he also acknowledged during an initial briefing that he would not be able to save all of those he was charged with protection during the harsh environment of Pandora. He shows great admiration for the dedication Jake Sully showed by willingly to perform covert intelligence gathering from within the Na'vi people. I have just one thing to say about Colonel Miles Courage. I don't like him. Tsute. Tsute was the Omatikaya clan's finest warrior. After the death of Etukan, the clan leader, he was Ulikitan himself from August 2022, 2154, Along with Jake Sully, Tute lead the Navis against the RDA forces in the assault on the Tree of Souls. He was mortally wounded by a machine gunner during the battle after valiantly dispatching several RDA soldiers and was granted a merciful death at his request by Jake. Personality and traits. At first, Chute appears to be an arrogant, aggressive, and sometimes merciless warrior who made no attempt to hide his resentment for people that he disliked. Most notably, Jake Sully. He frequently sneered at Jake when he made mistakes during his lessons. Tute was jealous of Jake and Netiri's growing affection for each other. When he realized that Jake and Netiri had made it, he was furious and attacked Jake, intending to kill him. But Jake easily defeated Tute, thanks to his skills as a former Marine recon. However, Tute eventually realized that he was not destined to become Netiri's mate and finally let go of his grudge against Jake. When the latter became Torok Makto, having a newfound respect for him, Chute smiled proudly at Jake when translating his words to the clan prior to the final battle. While dying, he admitted to Jake that he thought of him as a brother and that his proudest accomplishment was fighting side by side with Jake. Regardless of his seemingly aggressive nature, Chute was loyal and protective of his clan and courageous warrior. However, his bravery eventually cost him his life when he boarded the Valkyrie shuttle, taking several of the RDA soldiers down in the process. Even when fatally wounded, Tute was more concerned about the safety of the clan than his own injuries. Despite his exterior, Tute also seemed to have a softer side. He appeared both engaged and devastated when the trees of voices were destroyed. When Netiri told the clan that she and Jake had made it, Tute looked shocked and heartbroken. He also looked concerned when Jake revealed that Grace was dying and appeared sorrowful when she passed on. Tute had high standards for the young hunters to train, with the command, "Do better," serving as a motto. While he took his training seriously, he was less focused during meditation exercises with Etukan. Mowat and Netiri showing a playful side by swatting Netiri with his tail. Etukan. Etukan was a parrot of the Omatakaya clan. They made of Mowat, the father of Netiri and Silverinen, and the father-in-law of Jake Sully. Etukan was responsible for the overall leadership of the Omatakaya clan on Pandora during the RDA occupation. Under his and Mowat's instruction, Dr. Netiri trained Jake Sully in the lifestyle of the Navis. He was killed during the destruction of the home tree by falling wood, which impaled him through the chest. Personality and traits. Etukan was a good leader, who cared greatly for the welfare of his clan. During the destruction of home tree, he told Netiri to leave him and went into the burning home tree to rescue as many Navis he could. Though his bravery cost him his life, he loved his mate, Mowat, and his daughter, Netiri, although he sometimes had problems with his headstrong daughter, though they had some creases in their relationship. Netiri was heartbroken when he died, crying over his body. With his dying words, Etukan requested that Netiri take his vow and take care of the clan. Etukan seems to get along very well with Jake Sully and respected the Avatar, who respected him in return. He allowed Jake to speak and listen while he explained the RDA's upcoming assault. However, E41 hated treachery and was enraged when Jake revealed that he had been assigned by the RDA to spy on the Amaticaya and ordered both Jake and Grace to be bound. E41 was determined to defend Home Tree against the RDA forces and tried in vain to prevent the destruction of it. Mawat. Mawat is Chahik, or spiritual leader of the Amaticaya clan. She sings as a specific or a bridge to the Navi's beliefs, more specifically to Ewa. Mawat was mated with the former clan leader E41 and had 2 children, Neteri and Silvernin. Personality and traits. As the Sahik of the Amaticaya clan, Mawat possesses the strong connection to Ewa as well as possessing great wisdom. She tried to keep the peace within the clan. Mawat initially disapproved of Jake and the relationship, though she had been the one who ordered Neteri to teach Jake the ways of the Navis. She did not intend for them to fall in love. Nevertheless, she seemed to harbor much respect for Jake, especially after he became the 6th Torok Makto in Navi's history. Mawat loved her daughter and her maid a great deal, cared deeply for her people. She cared so much about her clan that she was even willingly to put aside betrayal and deception in order to keep her people safe, as proven when she freed Jake and Grace Augustine from their binding during the destruction of Home Tree and pleaded with Jake to save her people. I really can identify myself in Mawat, not only as a shaman but also in every way she does. She has a deep connection with the spirit world and also with Ewa. She is not only a healer but also a counselor of the tribe, and I think she is an example for most shamans on this planet. Parker Selfish. Let me tell you one thing. I hate Parker Selfridge. And not only of his intentions to just get the material and get rich of it, but his whole attitude. It sucks. Parker Selfish was a passive-aggressive head administrator of the RDA on Pandora, and along with Conor Gurridge, became an antagonist during the course of Avatar. Personality and traits. Parker Selfish approached to be a greedy and selfish man who would do anything to get his hands on the very valuable Unobtainium, including destroying the homes of the Navis. He had a very little respect for the Navis, referring to them as blue monkeys and savages. But granting Jake Sully 1 more hour to persuade the Amakaya's clan to leave their home tree, he showed that despite his limited respect for the Navis, he was willing to use diplomacy if he could and had a sense of morality. However, he was still willing to use force if negotiation failed. At the destruction of the home tree, though, he looked to realize what the events have come to, and it thereafter more reluctant to use violence against the Navis. Captain Trudy Chagan. Captain Trudy Chagan was a human ex-Marine pilot serving the RDA on Pandora on the SecOps Aviation Marine. She piloted a designated Samsung rotorcraft for transportation and battle missions. And her dedicated task on Pandora was eventually flying sorties for the Avatar program science team. Personality and traits. As a pilot for the RDA, Trudy was supposed to be loyal to Colonel Courage, but she possessed a rebellious personality, what I really like, and eventually turned against him and the rest of the RDA. Trudy was a strong-minded woman and refused to let others push her around, instead following her own conscience. Trudy played a vital role banishing the RDA from Pandora. She was very loyal to her friends and freed Jake, Grace and Norma from prison. And after saved Jake from the Dragon gunship during the final battle, Trudy also acted affectionately towards her Samsung, nicknaming it Rogue One, and something calling it her baby. Trudy was also very brave, fearlessly facing up against the larger and more powerful Dragon gunship during the final battle to help Jake evade it. Though her bravery cost her her life. Ewa. Ewa is guiding force of life and deity of Pandora and the Na'vi. The Na'vi believe that Ewa act to keep the ecosystem of Pandora in perfect equilibrium. It is sometimes theorized by human scientists that all living things on Pandora connect to Ewa through a system of neuroconductive antennae. This often explains why Na'vis can mount their dire horse or mountain banshee steeds and ride them immediately without going through the necessary steps required of domesticate such wild animals. Pandora. Pandora is an Earth-like habitable extrasolar moon from the Alpha Centauri system, the closest star system to humans' own solar system. It is the fifth moon of the gas giant Polyphemus, which orbit Alpha Centauri. The names of both the moon and its mother planet are coined by the humans in perfect preference to figure in Greek mythology. Discovered by space telescopes at some point between 2050 and 2077, the life-rich Pandora has been the single most interesting thing to happen to the human race in hundreds of years. The news service loved to run clips of the wild scenery on Pandora and its bizarre flora and fauna. To the cultures of Earth, Pandora is mysterious, primal and terrifying. Even from orbit, the scope of floras present on the surface indicate a moon brimming with life. One of the creatures on Pandora is the dire horse, a gray-skinned hexapodal horse-like animal with bioluminescent qualities that the Na'vis ride when hunting. The Na'vis also ride the mountain banshee to hunt from the air. But the hunter can become prey in the presence of the great Leonopsis. In the canopy below, other deadly yet exotic animals roam, victory packs of viper wolves, thick-skinned hammerhead, the most fearsome creature of all, the Thunder. Other than the riches of fairy color, the trees resemble those of Earth. They have the familiar trunks, branches and leaves. Though due to the differences in gravity, many of the shapes appear strange to humans, and the proportions are greater because of the lower gravity. The trees and plant life on Pandora have formed electrochemical connection between their roots and effectively act as neurons, creating a moon-wide brain that has achieved synthesis what is known to the Na'vi as E41. Pandora, despite being almost as large as Earth, is only a moon of the gas giant Polytimus, which has 13 other moons. However, due to the smaller size, its gravity is 20% less than Earth. Due to Pandora's lower gravity, most creatures on Pandora are hexapods, six-legged. Although the Na'vis resemble humans and have only 2 legs, creatures roam the air and forest canopy below, similarly to Earth's animals, but on a scale several times larger. Pandora's wildlife also have bioluminescence qualities. Depending on the position of the various moons, Pandora can have 2 or even 3 moons in its sky at once. Pandora and the other moons cast large black shadows on Polytimus. Pandora looks like a lush paradise by Earth standards during the day, but at night, virtually all life on the moon exhibits bioluminescence qualities in various shades of blue, purple, and green. This possibly explains the Na'vi's blue skin color, which most likely provides them better camouflage at night on Pandora. The Tree of Souls is a giant willow tree that is said to be the closest connection to Ewa on Pandora. As pointed out by Miles Courage, the tree is a point of extreme spiritual significance to the Na'vi, more so than any other point on Pandora. The assault on the Tree of Souls was a pitched battle that occurred on Pandora on August 22, 2154, and was the final major confrontation in the escalating conflicts between the human mercenaries serving the RDA and the allied forces of the indigenous Na'vi clans. It started as an attempted preemptive strike by RDA's SecOp force led by Colonel Miles Courage to destroy the skilled Tree of Souls in response to the rapidly growing Na'vi military presence led by the newly ascended 6th Tarok Makto. The rogue avatar driver Drake Sully, who had it in a matter of days required over 2,000 warriors from its 15 different Na'vi clans to fight the RDA. Sully was informed about Courage's plan of assault by a sympathizer he left behind inside the RDA, and the Na'vi alliance set up amphibious ambush in the floating Hallelujah Mountains and the jungles below to intercept the RDA forces. Although the RDA's superior firepower initially routed the much larger Na'vi forces with ease, the unexpected intervention of Pandora's ferocious wildlife quickly turned the high tide against them. The humans were overwhelmed and suffered heavy casualties, forcing the survivor to retreat to Hell's Gate. The Na'vis quickly reorganized their offensive and forcing the human headquarters to surrender, resulting in the forced withdrawals of our remaining RDA colonists from Pandora. The latest news on Avatar. Avatar 2 is definitely coming into cinemas in December 2022, ending the long waiting for fans to return to Pandora. The new release date of Avatar 3 is 20th of December 2024. Did you know that the theater company or Cirque du Soleil had a whole show around the Avatar. It is a very good show. I have seen it. And it calls Toruk First Flight. You can find this show on YouTube, and it's a really nice one to watch. Dear listeners, I'd like to thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you like it, and I tried to be diverse as much as I can. Tell me what you think, how I'm doing with this podcast. If you have any tips for me how I can do things better, let me know. If you'd like to talk about this episode or want to comment on this episode, you can reach out on the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. The next episode is about Cirque du Soleil. I'm your host, Dorinda. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in 2 weeks.